Begin spawning here right after the introduction cinematic. As they approach the first item, it appears red, and as they go to collect it, a counter, 4 items left, steel poles. So a counter shows up showing how many items remaining they have left to collect, as well as a little bit of a story clue. What I was attempting to do here in terms of the environment was create a Japanese temple-like environmental structure with a more modern feel to it, with buildings and some of the buildings having power, but still staying true to that temple-like foundation. There are interactive doors that open and close in player movement. And I'm going to go around here and collect the other 4 items, as well as talk about some other things that went right, wrong, and what we would do differently. Let's collect the other item. One thing that I do like is the terrain. Overall, it is very bright and vibrant. It makes the player feel happy and very welcoming, which I want the player to explore. I want them to want to go out and see what's out there. Another thing, the textures and the lighting. The wood grain here, it looks engraved as if it's real, alive, popping out. It's not flat and bland. And the lighting fixtures themselves actually animate. As you can see, it's bright, dim, bright, and gets dimmer. So there's other things happening. Lighting along with fans. There's things moving all around, which really give it an alive feeling here. A light animation, but it's a different animation than the other lights, thus giving it a little bit of diversity. One thing that I didn't like was a little bit of overscoping happened. As you can see, the size of this town is quite large. I mean, look over on the other side, you can barely, see the end of it over there. And with a larger town, it makes the town feel more realistic because it is larger, but at the same time, that size has to correlate with the interactivity, which can be harder to do in the given time frame that we are allowed. So, if I could go back and do something differently, it would be probably to reduce the size of the town. That way, I could nest more interactivity together. And even though the town itself would be smaller, with more interactivity located within a smaller area, it could actually make the town feel more alive and more realistic. As we go to collect the last item, another cinematic appears saying 0 items left and shows the door opening. And players give back control of the player, and sparks are coming from the canisters that held the items the players were collecting. This gives the player some sort of message saying, hey, there must have been a short in the fuse, a short in the wiring, and this is what required the door to open. It didn't just open magically by itself. So we exit out this area. Another thing that I would have taken more time in is maybe we create a little bit more buildings, a little bit of a thicker town. Although it does fit relatively well with the environment to have the town like this, given that we had more time or the town was smaller, it would have been very possible. Lastly, one thing I like located within this town is the reflection of the bars off the window. As you can see, the window is reflecting the bar materials, adding yet another depth of realism. Let's continue down this path and see where it takes us. As the player approaches the end of the path, they're left with this green patch. As they walk onto it, metal poles. The pieces that were taken from inside the shantytown are used in the hang glider. Let's press the E button to fly, so we press the E button, and we take off on the cinematic. If given more time or could do something differently, I would create a more dynamic and creative animation to putting the hang glider together. It did look like it was being pieced together and placed together, but the animation could have been a little bit more thorough. However, the flying cinematic turned out quite well. As the player lands, an explosion happens, giving a little bit more of a story snippet, and it's coming back to me. This place was an assassin training program. Not only does this give more clues to the player as to what the story pertains, but also brings more questions like, why am I here? Which is what we want.